All right, so breaking into news today around Silvergate, Signature, among many other banks. But what is the ripple effect on the crypto markets is the question. We're going to try to answer that. Hopefully give you guys a full rundown of what's happening out there from a banking situation. I think there's a bigger underlying strategy afoot. We'll try to give you some analysis on that. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to thank our sponsor today. That is Ledger. If you are looking at the one thing you should be looking at, which is self-custody, Ledger is the way to go. They've got this new Stacks product coming out. It's actually should be releasing this month, so it's very possible we could see this device actually land in our hands in a very short period of time. But hey, listen, they've got some other products here as well. You've got the Ledger Nano X, also the Nano S Plus, so you can get in fairly easily in terms of price, all up and down the lineup in terms of products. But the key here, guys, is get into self-custody. It's a very simple process. I think a lot of people think it's much harder than it is. It is not. Make sure and use our link down below. It does help the channel. All right, so I'm going to lead off with this Bloomberg clip right here. And this is basically them, the normies, talking about what has happened. Let's play this clip.
It's a crypto-friendly bank, and shares are just totally sinking. I mean, that feels like an understatement. We're down by 50% in 2 days. Joining us now to discuss, Bloomberg's Katie Greifeld. Katie, what's happening?
It's brutal. So the big news yesterday for this crypto-friendly bank, and it is a bank. It's a traditional bank that provides traditional banking stuff to crypto clients. So yesterday it came out, it said it's not able to file its 10K, which was a big surprise. You can see that in the shares today. Basically, it said that it needs more time to assess the damage to its finances from the likes of FTX, that fallout, and as it also needs to figure out whether it can actually stay in business. Those aren't things that shareholders typically like to see. So you look at shares down about, what, 45% right now. And this is a stock that had been a darling. It had surged something like 300% in 2020.
All right, so I'm going to stop it there. I mean, even mainstream media has a problem sometimes just getting out to the audience what exactly is going on here. And I think this is one of those good examples. It's kind of like the blind leading the blind. But point being is that Silvergate, it's not a funny thing. They've had some challenges, and we've known about this for quite some time. There are a lot of ripple effects that kind of play into this. The bigger factor is who is affected with this. Here's a story quickly. Coinbase no longer accepting payments via Silvergate. Now, don't panic too much. The scenario that they are painting out, they're going to facilitate their client cash transactions for its prime customers with other banking partners, Signature Bank. So you look at what's happening with both Silvergate and then obviously with Signature being the alternative here for Coinbase. But the key here is how does this affect the traditional markets in a longer potential play of how crypto can integrate into banks? Because no matter what you think about crypto, there's a lot of businesses out here, both in the US and abroad, that are utilizing regular traditional banks for a lot of additional services. And the key here, I think, is what banks are going to start to fill those voids. That's the real question that I think is interestingly playing out. I want to show this tweet right here from Genevieve. Silvergate Exchange Network enables the bank's digital currency and institutional investor clients to send US dollars. This is basically where they're connected. And if you look at this, I'm going to pop this out for you guys a little bit. You'll notice here there's some very big companies and projects involved here. Everything from obviously Coinbase, which has stepped away, but you got Circle now being hit, Bitstamp, Kraken, Gemini, Crypto.com, which I'll talk to you guys a little bit about that in a second. But the point is this is a ripple effect, and these are the things that we do look at. What does this potentially do to the overall markets? Now, is it going to be a big effect in terms of how the market might adjust? Based on what we've seen with just general sentiment terms, the market has already started to kind of lean into this particular area of a slight downtrend, even though with Bitcoin we're kind of on a little bit of a sideways action right now. But I think the key here is going to be how these companies start to affect other projects out there within the ecosystem. Here's Circle saying we maintain relationships with several banking partners. We're sensitive to concerns around Silvergate and are in the process of unwinding certain services with them and notifying customers. And I think a lot of times because this stuff is sometimes so buried and integrated in, many of these projects and customers may not even know that Silvergate is the banking partner, hence they may not even know they're at risk. That's a bigger factor that plays into this. Here was Tier 10K. He talks about Silvergate is lost, Coinbase, Circle, Paxos, Galaxy, Cboe, all rest in peace. So a big one for sure. Make sure and drop some questions in over on the side if you'd like to chat with me at the end. And of course, also smash the like button. It does help this video get some exposure out there and hopefully help others kind of step in. Here was Watcher Guru just in. This is crypto.com suspending USD deposits and withdrawals via Silvergate. I don't understand this because, you know, crypto.com continuously comes, I know they come at me a lot on when I just say I just don't trust it. I'm sorry. That's my feeling based on interactions, things I've had. And I have this about a handful of projects out there and exchanges. And always push back. But why would they let something like this happen? If they're, you know, brilliant people, don't let these things happen. You've got to make these moves in advance to not get your customers in these kind of positions where you've got USD deposits and withdrawals now all suspended with Silvergate. So big issue happening there. Of course, Silvergate's warning all of its investors it may not survive the year. Obviously, we saw more than a 30%. I'll show you the chart here in a second. But there's a few things here. Bank initially posted a loss of almost, look at that, $919 million in losses. Additional losses will negatively impact the regulatory capital ratios of the company, wholly owned subsidiary. The problem is that this sends a very interesting message, I think, to the rest of the banking industries. And that is that maybe crypto is not as financially sound and profitable as many had thought. And I think the scenario plays into banks who have made bad decisions and now are paying for it. These guys are not new to making bad decisions. They've done it all along. I mean, we've had this all the way back to the banking crisis of 2008, and you go further back into the world of when we had free banking prior to the Fed coming in and really restructuring how the banking system works. This is not new, guys. We get to see this every so often, and it just so happens we're getting to record one currently. Silvergate shares sank to a record low. Bank said it wouldn't be able to file its annual report. This is a big problem when it's resumed, whether it can even be viable. So you've seen, you know, this massive downturn in terms of the overall stock price, and obviously just the different, you know, strategies of companies that are built around this. There was Adam Cochran talking a little bit more about the death spiral. Let me zoom in on that. It's going to be rough for crypto. I don't think retail investors realize how much market maker money moved around quickly via, you know, SEN, and also how many crypto exchanges are banking with them. So this is a big one, SEN, Silvergate. So it's going to hit. I think the key here is I don't know that this is completely set in to a lot of the market so far because we're seeing a lot of sideways action both on ETH and on Bitcoin. But the real question is a lot of these companies that are tied into this. This is USDC. Look at the companies that are tied into this. You got MoneyGram, Recur, Big Time, Aave, Uniswap, Top Shot, going to get hit again. Robinhood is also tied into this. Now, could Robinhood have any kind of challenge with that? I don't know that that would necessarily be the case because the key here is this is a USD settlement versus USDC's settlement and use case of how they're integrated in with Silvergate. So, but the point is how will this fall out into a lot of these extenuating customers, as USDC Circle was mentioning in that tweet earlier? This will be the big question that really kind of flows this further. This coming over from Kyle, one of our co-hosts here. This was the DC comic universe, and this was Palm NFT Studio, and this again was another one that got hit, and this was them writing to inform of this upcoming change. Cash out services now are all gone. So your funds, they're still secure, but they're going to be impacted. So all this is built around this whole issue with Circle. Again, a lot of these projects, NBA Top Shots, many of the ones I just showed you, Big Time, many others, all potentially could be impacted here in a very short period of time. This is the other thing too. You look at a couple of scenarios here. This is the order book. Dwindling order book depths raises liquidity concerns in the markets. A couple of things they highlight here is that both Bitcoin and ETH hit new lows, even lower than the post FTX collapse. And a major concern in illiquid market can have ramifications both on the upside and downside. So you see ETH obviously seeing a liquidity scenario playing out. Same thing with Bitcoin right here. And this is where these kinds of scenarios could play into it, because the banking ecosystem is one that is somewhat sensitive right now, at least in the crypto markets. I was surprised to hear earlier that there were so many crypto banks that were even out there. I'll talk about that in a second. Again, make sure and drop some questions over the side, and don't forget, smash the like button. Andrew Kane comes in and says, Celsius is sending remaining funds and unwrapping 260 million in Bitcoin. Voyager, FTX assets are being sold. 3 Arrows NFTs are being launched, or auctioned. Liquidators taking advantage of the recent market conditions, and it looks like everybody's going to get a chance to buy the tail end of these liquidations near the Q1 ending. So that may be a good thing. Maybe we're going to see the full bottom here on some of what we've seen around the ETH ecosystem and NFTs. Voyager picking up the pace on ETH and other liquidations. Overall, looks like other liquidators also might be busy. So again, you can kind of see the ETH balance starting to dwindle there as Voyager starts to handle their liquidations. Further into this, you've got their bankruptcy judge says he's absolutely shocked by the SEC objection to the Binance.USD. This is a good one. Let me highlight what this was the judge saying this. You come here, and he's talking to the SEC. You come here and tell me that I should stop everybody in their tracks because you might have an issue addressing the counsel for the SEC. It's kind of a weird objection. And then he goes further in and says, I get the feeling that this objection has been made of a kind of cover. So you can say later that we raised these issues, he said, but you haven't done anything. I need to know specifics. So essentially, it's the SEC doing what they do, which is creating something out of nothing and, of course, playing it out in a court of law. And I think the judges might actually be getting a little bit fed up with these antics. So interesting stuff for sure. 147 million in crypto liquidations just over the past 24. This all coming until the Shanghai upgrade. Around March 14th is kind of the plan. So just be aware. We could see a little bit of ETH. We did a video earlier. I don't know if we got it dropped out yet. Did we get that one dropped out yet? All right, so not yet, but watch for an ETH video that's coming to you. A little bit more of an analysis of where ETH is going. Further into this, you've got some other things. Of course, Mt. Gox, their creditors may finally start seeing their Bitcoins this month as well, this being March. So you got Shanghai, you've got Silvergate, you've got Mt. Gox. All these scenarios, it could be coming to a very interesting period of time in which we could see a market correction. Some traders have been talking about this. Some traders have been saying, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to see kind of sideways action. This was just basically kind of diving in. The first tranche of repayments, including early lump sum payments and intermediate payments, all now with further amounts coming later. That could be a pretty big deal. We'll see. Again, I don't know. Some of these people may not necessarily look at liquidations because owning a Bitcoin back at that time would have been interesting. But very, very interesting timing here. Gox, Bitcoin hitting markets, and Shanghai upgrade happening at the same time. Interesting. Further into the SEC, now this is where we start to get into some banking. I want to go back to the headline right here. So basically, it's our friendly chair Gensler says crypto exchanges may not be qualified custodians. Now, who would be? I mean, granted, there are custodian issues with that, but if there's obviously a one-to-one ratio in terms of validation of funds and those kind of things, it's not necessarily a major issue. I think the scenario plays out into the fact that the SEC has their banking partners. They want to be able to benefit from this, as do the feds. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of this playing out in open air court and also within the markets itself. This is based on how crypto trading and lending platforms generally operate. Investment advisors cannot rely on them today as qualified custodian. This is Gensler saying this. To be clear, just because a crypto trading platform claims to be qualified custodian doesn't mean it is. All you have to do is just show that you've got liquidity and show that you've got reserves. The proposal takes up, this is a proposal being made, the proposal takes up Congress 2010 provision for us to expand the custody rule to cover all of an investor's assets, not just their funds or securities. So again, back to the SEC going after, and we know this is going to happen. They're going to go after the exchanges. They're putting a lot of pressure on, as we all know, around Kraken. what we've seen and will see most likely with Gemini and even Coinbase to a certain extent. But I do know that Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, has stated on record of his disdain of being able to deal with the SEC and saying, listen, you need to get some clarity here. Of course, that's what the lawmakers are all talking about, is the clarity relationship that they, meaning they, SEC, has with the markets. The fact that there is no clarity. Here you got Eleanor Terrett coming in. It's worth noting that just the federal government isn't looking to exert control over crypto. Last year, state regulators bought twice the number of enforcement actions versus federal regs, 112 actions. Remember, though, the federal regulators, there's just not as many. Right now, you have 50 different states out there. So don't think too much about that, other than the fact that all these states have banking partners that they like. So this goes back to the scenario of the Fed wanting to control where this ends up in. Right now, the market is in disarray. You've got all these things happening. Market is basically have been submarine in terms of value. When is the best time to enter into that? If you were a banking company, would you come in like Silvergate, who had to ride that trail down and then paid for it? Or would you come in when those markets are at their lowest and ride that train up and then validate the industry and make it an everyday thing? That's what I think is at foot, is that mainstream banking is looking for a foothold right now to connect. Here was the breakdown a little bit here. Proposes bill to prevent Bitcoin from being money. Again, this is going to be a big one. This law would ensure that only governments can create money, CBDC. Which one would face is exclude digital assets, and no medium of exchange can be considered unless it's approved or adopted by the government. So this is something that we've been and seeing around. The problem is the rest of the world is already operating on this protocol, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. There's seemingly a goal to build a bulwark of pro-CBD states that also exclude digital assets like Bitcoin from the definition of money. And these are the states that are potentially out there. So if you're in one of these states right there, I'll leave that map up a little bit right there. You should be contacting your legislators, and you should be screaming at the top of your lungs to the potential of freedom around our financial future. And a lot of this is going to boil down to what kind of bills and regulation play into this. These states are going to be just as, I think, lethargic in making this happen and allowing for this to happen the way they want it to happen, full control, with both the banks and also the issue around CBDC. So be aware, guys, this fight is not over. Remember, the last phase of what you go through is the fight phase. Then they fight you. They laugh. Okay, now we're in the fight phase. Now they laugh at you. Or now they laugh at you. Now they're fighting you. So here's U.S. Federal Reserve denies Custodia Banks. This is, if you guys don't follow Caitlin Long, she is Custodia Bank CEO. This is a bank out of Wyoming that has implemented a strategy that aligned with Wyoming's new, a lot of their financial laws that have been put in place for many reasons, much like Delaware has done for C corporations. A lot of companies will incorporate in the state of Delaware. Wyoming is playing into the future of where maybe digital assets could go. Caitlin Long had to deal with this right here, and that is right here. Federal Reserve announced it's denied the request by Custodia Bank for reconsideration of the board's decision last month in its application to be supervised by the Federal Reserve. This was Custodia Bank, very small bank, trying to get the approval process and going through the right kind of steps to get this done. But because of the kind of bank model that they were presenting, it completely changes how the banking industry would potentially be constructed away from reserve banking and into a completely new model of how banking could be done. And I think it is basically the big banks saying, we like it the way it is. We're going to wait till this crypto market is at its weakest. We're going to come in and give these ridiculously low yields, but we're going to give security and we're going to take the market over. That's where I think a lot of this is playing. And if you listen to what Caitlin Long talks about, this was in a podcast with Nat Brunell, and listen to what she talks about here. This is a good example right here.
Happens gradually and then suddenly. This is the sort of thing that is very small right now. That's why I find it rather amusing that Washington came guns blazing against a company like Custodia and shot a bazooka at a bunny rabbit, because we are tiny. We're not even operating. Why were they so afraid of us? What was it that caused the White House, the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, the Kansas City Fed, and the majority whip of the US Senate to attack a business that wasn't even operating yet? That's an interesting question. It does indicate, frankly, how afraid they are of this technology. It's going to happen gradually.
So they're afraid they are, how afraid they are of the technology. And I do believe that is the scenario that's playing afoot here. The key here is it's kind of like the Operation Choke Point that we've talked about here on this show many times. Just search that on Google. There's a great Substack article out there on called Operation Choke Point. And the idea is how does this apply from DC? Is there a constructed effort between the feds, the SEC, and lawmakers to essentially lay the pathwork in play for traditional banks to possibly come in and take over what could be either a new digital dollar, hence CBDC, and the potential of how crypto and or digital assets could play out through these new banking entities in the future. So this is a big deal happening in a very short period of time. Here's Bitcoin price rises 23K, rerunning as Coinbase stock falls over the Silvergate issue, which we saw. And some people are saying that there might be a potential here of some shorts that are coming in. So there could be a quick recovery here of Bitcoin and ETH for the potential to liquidate those shorts, and then we see the adjustment down. That's the real question. We had Gareth Soloway on earlier this week. Make sure and check that video out. He and I were somewhat in alignment on the scenario of March being a little bit tougher month. And I think as we look at both declining sentiment right now on both Bitcoin and ETH, I still feel that that is going to be the scenario playing this out. Just to give you guys a quick look on right here is Bitcoin, which has dipped down to 64.37. Looks like a big drop, but it's not a heavy from a 65.92, almost a point and point and a half right there. Amplification is still holding with it. Overall market's also dipping right now ahead. This is date as of today, or sentiment as of today, dropping. ETH, same scenario. So we may get a chance here. This could be the precursor that sets up a little bit of these downward trends on both Bitcoin and ETH. Could that be the scenario? Right now, we're seeing a lot of sentiment coming in, obviously off of the Silvergate issue. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next week to 10 days. We'll try to get into that for sure. Let's go over to the poll real quick. Is Silvergate about to crash the crypto market? Yes, a lot of mainstream FUD. And then no one cares. I don't know. This is an interesting one. I don't know that we'll see a crash. I think it's going to be this slow, methodical, problem child of continuing to make it harder and harder for these companies to operate and slowly just pecking away at the dominoes in terms of how it plays. Let's get into a couple of questions. Jen Smith comes in with, would a mainstream bank buy Silvergate? I think right now, unless the mainstream bank is in bed with the Fed, so the short answer is yes. The long answer would be maybe, because it depends on the toxicity that they bring to the market. When I say they, meaning crypto brings to the market, depending on what kind of relationship they have with the Fed as to whether or not they would say, okay, we're willing to risk that and we'll do it. That could be interesting for sure. All right, Silvergate says FUD is already priced in. I think I'm going to sneeze there. Colin McDonald says this most likely be priced in now, and the market's kind of do. Thoughts on that? I think there's a good possibility. Yes, it could be. We're running around that 23. I think let's take a look at where Bitcoin is right now on the 4 hour. Yeah, so we're on the 4 hour. We've got our second green starting to print. So we're at 24 or 23.4. But remember, guys, that's let me kind of zoom up on this just to give you a little closer look on this. Over the last day, if you think about just that small little clip right there, small amount, just 1%. But if you look at that as you zoom out and go into the position all the way back here from our 25 highs, which was these really kind of these triple tops right here that we hit, almost 25, 25, and 25. That number is a little bit different in this downward trend line that we're in currently. That's a 6% could stay with possibly a 7 to 8 or 10% trend line going down. Does Binance US use Silvergate? No, I don't think so. I think they're using international banks. Maybe not. Maybe they are, because they are being a U.S. entity. Jen Smith, no mention of Tesla Day. Does yeah, we do. We track we track EVs a lot. We used to talk about electrification a ton here on TechPath. Obviously, we've kind of converted mostly into blockchain and crypto, but we do get into that. I was very disappointed with Investor Day. Just we didn't see the things I felt that investors needed to see, which are more forecasts and numbers, versus a lot of pie in the sky stuff. Of where Tesla is going. I like that on days when they are designed for, should be like, instead of Investor Day, let's go to Mars Day or something, or let's build a robot that can do interesting things day. Mark Gauthier says, I guess it's safe to say Silvergate is not coming back from. I don't think so either. Yeah. I think this one's out. Just another one. What are the odds of someone bailing them out? Maybe it could be, it's a very, banks do this all the time. Depends on their assets, on their books. But remember, they've been very slow in getting these asset reports out to the feds. And that in itself is a problem. Sam says, Coinbase, you don't like. Who do you use? I use a variety. I use, I'll use Pinex US right now. That's one of the ones I like to use. Occasionally I'll trade over on, some of the other internationals out there. But primarily, if you need to do something quick and fast and in and out, if you're willing to pay the fees, Coinbase can get you in. But Pinex US has been a good one for me. MicroStrategy has a big loan from Silvergate. Yes, they do, but the question will be how they do that. Liquidation, they'll probably sell that loan off, most likely at a discount. Bought Silvergate stock today. Cheers. Well, it's going to be low, that's for sure. So if we get any kind of, if you have any kind of bounce on that, you might be in a good position. Let me run over here to Silvergate. Let's get over to stocks. And take a look at SI. So that kind of shows the chart right here. Just right there's the 4 hours. So that obviously has been the fall right there. But let's take a look at how far that did come from just Wednesday to where we are right now. 59. So it's still falling here at 590. That'll be interesting. And do we continue to see that moving down? Wow, that's an amazing chart there. If you go to the daily, click back to the 1 year. Look at this. This is where this project or this bank was trading. What a fall we have seen over this period of time, from $100 down to almost $5. That's insane. All right. Okay, guys, if you're not in the Diamond Circle, these are the things that you want to be in the Diamond Circle for. We do additional analysis, additional research all over on the Diamond Circle. You can use the link down below or just go to the Substack. It's real simple. pbn3.substack, you'll find it out there. If you just search PBN3, our Substack actually comes up on first page now. So good stuff out there. Lots of people signing up for that. So make sure and get on that. It drops a lot of our alpha, some additional podcasts, and a lot of our additional audio analysis that we do inside the Substacks themselves. It's a really cool tool. It's not a podcast, but it's additional content that we record for you guys based on some of the research that we're doing. That's the only place that kind of content lives. So check it out. You guys don't want to miss that. If you want to reach me, it's out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.